And my name is Simon Glazier. I am a chartered financial planner, director, and founder of a business called Stewardship Wealth, which operates just north of Aberdeen in Inverurie. And I was a graduate of economics and management from Aberdeen University. I was there between 1995 and 1999, which makes me 48 years old. And I'm married and I've got three kids.
That's great to hear. Why did you go into the field of economics and management, choose to study that degree specifically?
Yeah, I was quite comfortable with mathematics at school. My dad was an accountant. My school offered a business studies A level and English, so I moved to Scotland and really enjoyed it, to be honest. And so economics was the closest link to business studies that I could find. Wasn't entirely sure what it was. Obviously, there was micro and macro. There's big stuff and little stuff, running businesses, running countries. So I put management on the side as well to try and learn a bit about what it might be to lead a business, run a business. I didn't really have any intention at that time to do it, but it felt like a good broad degree to help me get a job when I eventually graduated.
What was like your most interesting part about studying economics and management at the university at the time?
I really actually enjoyed some of the analytical stuff. So I remember to this day some of the theory of utility, the utility of making choices with limited resources, and it just really appealed to me. I got the maths behind it, I got the science behind it. I did my dissertation on the utility of religion in the end. Does religion add happiness to your life from an economics perspective? And apparently it does. Brilliant. So I just got it, and that really helped me understand why economics became an important subject to people, individuals, families, as well as businesses and countries.
hmm And did anything about like what you studied at Aberdeen during your time here impact like your career nowadays? Or as you mentioned, you were interested in how economics and religion have a connection. Did that also have a big impact on your life today?
Eventually, yes, but not very quickly. So after I graduated, in fact, before I graduated, I was getting married, I was buying a house, I was speaking to a financial advisor, and she quickly realized that I got the mechanics. I understood what she was talking about. The numbers were fine, the principles were fine. And so pretty much at the end of our last meeting, she said, Simon, you get this stuff. What are you going to do when you graduate? I gave the best answer I could, which was going to get a job. And she said, well, do you want to work with me? Sure. And so I was offered a job a few months before I graduated. I did some exams. I qualified as a financial advisor. And it kind of turned away from certainly the macroeconomic into the micro. It was kind of family life, it was small business economics, and turned it into the personal journey of managing money. And I got it. I got it better than a lot of people. The technical side of things I understood. So that led me into the career I'm now in. And then during that journey, I kind of realized I'm a Christian. I've been part of a church all my life. I was working alongside people who didn't share my faith background. And I began to realize that actually sometimes the connection with people was really important. When I did work with Christians, they kind of shared a same value and set of beliefs. And I was able to add a lot more value to their lives by understanding them and bringing a Christian perspective and a financial perspective. And actually, over the years, I have almost specialized in offering advice to those with faith. I record a financial faith podcast, have done for a few years. It's quite niche, but I also offer advice to those that have no faith background, and I can still bring some value to them. So I have found my degree has helped certainly over the years. I've had to learn a vast amount more as well. And there's plenty of people in my profession that don't come from a finance, accountancy, economics background and still love the job they do. But I feel like it gave me an edge. It helped me identify what I enjoyed and what I was good at.
hmm And you mentioned being a financial advisor. So what does that entail kind of on the day to day? And what are some difficulties that kind of make the job a lot harder than some people might imagine?
So, financial advice is the art rather than the science of helping people make good decisions with their money. So, we call it purpose-driven financial planning, understanding people's values, their purpose, their goals, who's important to them, what they enjoy doing, and then applying their wealth. And their wealth might be their income, their assets, inheritances, savings, pensions, and helping them use those resources to give them the lifestyle that they want. Now, often they don't know from a tax perspective how to do that. So we're adding value in terms of interpreting tax legislation, and tax changes pretty much every year in the UK. There's big changes to pension legislation, to inheritance tax. And so we bring the technical knowledge and we bring the relational skills together, and then we present a massively complex set of rules to people who are managing just their day-to-day affairs, trying to get through life, pay the bills, pay off the mortgage, get the kids through school or university, buy houses, retire, pass money on when they die. And you're journeying with them potentially over decades. I've had clients, certainly I've been working with 15, almost 20 years, and they've followed me from company to company as I've moved around because they value somebody who understands them, who they can talk to about money, because money isn't a very common topic. People generally shy away from it. They feel either embarrassed or scared. They don't understand enough about it. And we get to find out an awful lot about people. So we journey with people, we help them out. They pay us handsomely, they get a lot of value. And then as the law changes, as tax changes, we have to suddenly pivot. Well, that was right last year, but this year there's a new strategy. This is going to make you better off or not as worse off as it might be the case. And it's a brilliant relational technical journey. But like I say, it's more art than science.
Hmm.
We apply the science of evidence-based investing, of tax application, but it's the art of crafting a financial plan and then bringing people along board, alongside and on board to that plan, so they make good decisions to get good outcomes.
Yeah. So you mentioned people skills and how that's like a large part of your job. What are some other skills that people might not know that a financial advisor might need to succeed in that field?
There's a degree of financial understanding and numeracy. I do a lot of mental maths, sitting in a meeting with somebody, calculate their tax liability just with some numbers and hope it's about right, and it usually is. There's something to do with planning the future. If you're the kind of person that wakes up in the morning and kind of can't remember what lessons you've got today, or what you're having for your dinner, or where your socks are kept, you're not planning well for the future. If you're the kind of person who wakes up and goes, right, I've had this day planned out, I know what's going to happen, I know where I'm going to be and when, what time the bus is, when I've got to get on my bike to get to university, whenever it happens to be, you're a planner. And not everybody's a good planner. If you are a good planner, people will pay you to plan their lives for them. Now, to be honest, as a student at university, I wasn't very organized. I had to learn that skill later in life. So I brought the technical, I learned the planning, but I was happy talking to people. So if you are good at one of them, you can probably learn the other. Most of the time, I say this for almost all jobs, to be honest, it is easier to learn the technical aspects of the job than it is to come with the right character. If you come with a character of, I want to help people, I want to grow this business, I want to develop my own professional ability, then employers are able to train you on the technical side of things if you have some ability. You could be technically brilliant, but have the wrong ambition, the wrong values, you're totally disorganized. They can't use those skills. So develop yourself in a balanced way. Yes, technical stuff you might get through university degrees, but social stuff you get through engaging with people, relational stuff, and develop yourself personally as well. What can you learn through reading, through podcasts, through videos, whatever it happens to be, to develop your own abilities, make yourself well-rounded, more valuable to employers, more valuable to prospective clients, because then they pay you and you enjoy what you're doing. You get a good life because they're getting a good outcome from you.
And would that be one of the advice that you give to students to kind of make yourself be a well-rounded person and not just like a machine that recites information that they learned at university?
Ideally, yes, but it takes a different kind of learning. So, lifelong learning is something I got into much later. I did my degree, I enjoyed it. I went through exams, professional exams, probably for about 10 years after I qualified, and still kept getting better. And occasionally I still do qualification exams, but all these books over here in my kind of little library, I've always got two or three or four books on the go. There might be one management book, there might be one economics book, there might be one faith book, there might be one relationship book. I'm trying to improve myself. And I have colleagues who say to me, Simon, why do you do that? Why do you go and read books about communication when you're a really good communicator? Well, I'm a good communicator because I read books about communication. Now, you have to put the work in first of all. So take your natural skills. Maybe you're good at something. Don't develop them too much. Find the things you're not quite as good at, develop those up. That makes you more rounded. Otherwise, you get too focused. You can be brilliant at one thing, but you can't communicate to people, so they never find out you're brilliant at it. Work on those communication skills, work on the social skills, work on the art rather than the science. I'm not talking about artistic, I'm talking about the theory, the thinking, the planning, not just the numbers, the technical side of things. And then you become a nice person to work with, as well as a nice person maybe to work for. And so people want to spend time with you. You become a more valuable asset, which is good for you in the future.
Hmm. And you mentioned how some of your clients have stayed with you from company to company. Now, what makes you different from any other financial advisor, and what makes you specifically successful in your own field?
So it turns out that technically I am pretty good. I won an award 10 years ago now. It was the UK Chartered Financial Planner of the Year award, which basically was well, you're the best financial planner we have in the country. So that was pretty good. You have to enter the award. So you don't just get picked out of a hat. You enter and you prove yourself worthwhile. So I'm clearly good at my job, but there are lots of good financial planners out there. I think it's an ability to relate to people. So take those complex issues and then bring them to a level, whether they are degree level, they're good at mathematics, they understand accountancy, or it could be somebody who has never worked with money. I often come across retired people whose partner has passed away. The partner did all the family finances, and suddenly they're like, I don't know what to do. I can simplify this, I can help you on the journey. So it's the balance of technical skill, relational skill, bring it down to a level people understand. You have to trust your financial advisor. If you don't use them. So almost the niche that I have created beyond technical ability is actually a faith side of things. There's quite an appeal to those of a faith background to want to work with somebody who understands them. I definitely don't market myself to other Christians, but they kind of hunt you out. Go, oh, why wouldn't I work with a fellow Christian who also happens to be a financial advisor? Now, it might be that those of other faiths come to me because there's some aligned values, or they go to advisors of their own faith. And if you have no faith, generally people think, well, it's quite admirable the way you run your business. You have a set of values and you have a culture which we quite like the idea of. It's not just about you making as much money as possible for yourself. You give money away, you employ people, you train them up. You're creating a relational journey that people want to be part of. And it turns out I'm quite good at that. So it attracts people and then they stay. And that's a great business model. If you've got a client who's paying you every year, year after year after year, that's far easier than having to go and find new business every time. New client, new money, new business, new client. But I got to that stage. For many years, I was an employee and I worked within other people's businesses, but realized that their values and their culture didn't match my own. So once I nailed down what's important to me in life, I was able to craft a business where I want to work. I want to work in stewardship wealth because it reflects who I am. It turns out other people do too. So if you can identify those things that are important to you and then find a place you can work that you enjoy, that gives you value and purpose, and people are prepared to pay you to do, you're in a very sweet spot.
Hmm. And how did you go and how did you decide to go from being an employee to the employer? And what are some of the major differences that you've seen in your lifestyle and your work that differ those two different people?
Yeah, I mean, the main reason was culture. So I was working for an Aberdeen-based accountancy firm, maybe 250 staff, and I was quite senior. I had a good reputation. I was being well paid, but I saw the culture around me, and the culture was we work hard and then we play hard, which sounds great. But working hard is not good for your health. It's not good for your mental health. It's not good for your relationships. Working 60, 70 hours a week doesn't give you a fully rounded life. It might help you progress. You might make lots of money, but I was working with the partners of that business. They were the owners of the business. And I saw they were wealthy, but they weren't healthy. They had poor relationships and they weren't happy. And so I couldn't really change that culture. One person in a big firm, okay, small firm at 250, it was certainly big for me. But I'm not going to be able to change this. I don't want to work here. I don't want to be a partner in this business. I don't want the lifestyle that they aspire to. Money is not the thing that drives me. So I wanted to create a business where it would pay me. In fact, it pays me better than I earned back there, but I had to get to that point. I wanted to work in a place that met my values, that I enjoyed who I was working with, and I could choose more of the clients and not have to take them all on because I was told you must earn more money and work more hours. So to begin with, I left and I worked by myself for a year, took on a trainee. He's been with me 6 years now. Um, I don't really enjoy being an employer. It's a burden. It's a bit of a hassle. It takes it away from the fun of running a business. So one of my early appointments was to bring in somebody who could help run the business with me, not quite for me. Um, and so you're playing to your skills. My skills are being in front of clients, helping them, and being paid and generating income for the business. And then I bring people into the business. There's now 8 of us in total, so it's not a huge company. But who enjoys the bit of the work that I don't enjoy? Right, go and do that for me, and I'll pay you for it. And it doesn't always work that way, but they're happy. I'm happy. We're all enjoying working here. It's more efficient. It comes with hassle. You do go home and you have to think about things like, oh, it's my business. I've got to make enough money to pay the bills. Once you've got there, it's really enjoyable. But then people keep changing rules and taxation and employee benefits, and someone's ill or someone has a bit of a crisis at work, and you end up being a counselor as much as an employee and employer relationship. So having people you trust and respect is great. And I'm very fortunate to be in that position. But at some point, I am the boss. And I have to say, come on now, you're not doing what you need to be doing. Let's get this sorted.
Hmm. And how do you, because you mentioned taxation, how do you keep up with the changes in the industry, specifically with like laws and how other people might adapt around you?
We're fortunate, I'm sure many professions are the same. There are professional bodies out there who are um, reading and analyzing the changes and then filtering them down because we are the interface. Within the whole financial services industry, money is generated when someone like me, an advisor, sits in front of someone like you, a client who has money, and convinces them to put the money into an investment, a product, a provider. So those providers are desperate to help us do our job well. Because if we do our job well, they generate more money. And so they're very good at employing technical experts who will then distribute that information across the country to all the financial advisors. And we pick and choose who we listen to. We have to go through an annual CPD, continuing professional development program. So every year I have to do 50 hours of training just to maintain my qualifications. And a lot of that is keeping up to date with legislation and tax changes, as well as professional qualifications, as well as practical skills and personal skills. So we are in a place where the information is delivered to us. Now, as we're recording this, there's a budget coming up, and there's lots of rumor about what the Chancellor will say in the budget. What will she change? Will it be this? Will it be that? You can either play up to that and you can communicate with your clients all the speculation of what might happen. But unfortunately, what might happen isn't often what does happen. So there's very rarely the situation where you can preempt something without causing potential harm to that client. So we will often say, don't worry about speculation, whether it's markets going up and down or companies doing well or what the chancellor's going to say. We will respond when the time comes and we know the facts. And then within your financial plan, we will pivot. We'll make a change because we can't predict what's going to happen, but we can plan and we can adapt as we need to. So we're part of a bigger profession. There's 20,000, 30,000 financial planners and advisors in the UK, and I'm just one of them. So I'm in that profession and I'm gathering data and then applying it to my clients and their situations.
Hmm. And speaking of adapting, AI is making vast advances in almost every industry that I can imagine. And I'm assuming it's making advances in your industry as well. How have you seen the impact of AI so far on your career field, and how do you see it impacting it in the future as well?
Yeah, the easiest way that AI is helping us is almost like this. I can have a client meeting by Zoom, I can record the meeting, the AI can sit in, it can then transcribe the meeting, it can prepare a post-meeting note or a post-meeting minute, it can pull out actions we've agreed. Some of the financial services specific AI will then say, well, having listened to that conversation, effectively, you should advise the client too increase their pension contributions, move money into their ISA, decrease their risk profile, whatever it happens to be. In that moment, we will have oversight of that. The AI isn't yet good enough to understand some of the nuance of relationship. It's kind of taking the words, it's not always taking into account the emphasis, or it's not being able to interpret how the client actually looked when they said something, or when they looked at their partner with a bit of doubt or with a bit of a smile. Relationship is so much a part of what we do. AI is very good at the detail and the facts. It's not perfect yet at translating technicalities into a client situation, but it's getting there. So I think within the next couple of years, even, we can have a client meeting, hit a button, and the AI will produce a minute of the meeting, a recommendation report, the illustration of what the client needs, application forms. Our job is then to oversee that and just check how comfortable are we that what the AI has produced is appropriate for this client situation. And then, or if we haven't already, how do we explain to the client what it means? Because the solution was only ever effectively the paperwork, it was the function. And that has almost no value to the client, but it's what we spend a lot of our time doing. If we can spend less time doing that, we can spend more time with the client, helping them understand, because what the client wants most of all, even more than making good returns on their investments or saving tax, the clients want peace of mind. They want to walk out of a meeting and go, oh, I'm at peace. I'm relaxed. Simon's got a plan. I understand the plan. I don't understand all the technicality, but I know that he does. I can walk away and not have to worry for the next year. And when I come back, the question is, am I still on track? Is there still a plan? So as we see it, AI will help us do our job more efficiently and help us have more time to do the bit that the clients really value.
Hmm. And pivoting back to kind of like your life as a student, um, what societies were you kind of part of, and what did you do outside of your academic learning while at university?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first sites I joined was the scuba club. I love scuba diving. I've done it like once or twice on holiday, and it was just blooming expensive. So the scuba club was a nice cheap way of learning to scuba dive in the swimming pool at the university. It wasn't the same one we have now. It was brilliant. Um, I then joined the Christian Union. Being a Christian, actually, I didn't get on very well with the Christian Union, but I did join a church locally, and the church became my family. So I spent a lot of time with people of all ages and stages. I quickly found a couple of families who would feed me. So I would maybe go to church on a Sunday morning, go to their house and get fed my lunch and my dinner, come back that night. Great way to live as a student when there are families who are going to feed you. And what that meant is when I graduated, I had loads of connections around the city and the Shire, which helped me get a job, which helped me get clients, and helped me get a wife, and helped me get fed. So that social networking outside of university was really big. But I loved the outdoors. We did a lot of hill walking and rock climbing and jumping off, well, usually bridges into rivers, because where I came from, it was pretty flat. And so just being in this part of the world, I loved. And I couldn't leave at the end of the day. I had no intention of going back home. It's like, this is my place. This is where I'm connected. And I've never left. And that was 30 years ago.
Hmm. And so, like you mentioned how you didn't want to leave. How did you see the transition from academia to the working field? Was that easy for you? Was that hard? And do you have any advice for students who might be doing that in the next year or so?
I think it's very different now. When I left university, like I said, I literally just got married just as I graduated, and that's unusual. And we've been married now 25, 26 years. Um, we also bought a house straight away, a flat, because my first job, plus her being a medical student, so she had a good, strong income plan for the future, we could afford our first flat. It was £60,000, and my first salary was £16,000. Um, Getting into the workplace was definitely easier. But it turns out that that was only easy for me because I had created like an informal network. I didn't go out to network. I just met people during my time at Aberdeen University, and they weren't all students. They were people from other walks of life. I wasn't very deliberate. I was very blessed to end up where I did. So my advice would be try to expand your social environment. Now, that might mean getting involved in societies with older students who then graduate, get jobs, and you stay connected to. It might be getting involved in societies or clubs that interact with people out with university. Certainly those who are 10, 20, 30 years older than you, who realize you might not interact with, because those are the people who can really offer you support and guidance, but possibly also a way into a profession in the future. Absolutely. If you can position yourself as an employable person, it's not just about the degree. So many people in my position, if we're approached by graduates, it doesn't matter so much what the degree is. It's the fact, well, you've got a degree. Great. You can learn. I can teach you. Have they come to me directly because they're interested in the field that I work in? They've found out about me or my business or the profession I'm in, rather than, hey, I'm a graduate, I've got a degree, I want a job. I need to know that you've investigated, you've researched a bit to help you stand yourself apart from the crowd, not just going to the recruitment agencies and applying for jobs that are advertised. find someone you want to work for, find a profession you might be involved in, ask for a bit of whether it's, a summer job or it's a bit of interning to get the experience. It does make a massive difference, but it means you're changing your lifestyle as a student. It's not as much time to necessarily socialize or partake in your hobbies or earn money at a part-time job, which is really important as a student, but you're positioning yourself for when you stop being a student and suddenly you've got to earn the income to pay the bills. And maybe if your parents are not local and you're having to pay for your own housing costs and your own transportation and your own food, learn those skills as a student, learn budgeting skills. It is a skill that people do not learn in life. So to come out and understand where your money comes from and where it goes to, massive skill for anybody. And then you can demonstrate to an employer, I'm a good person to employ. I will help you as the employer achieve your business goals. I'm teachable, I'm willing to learn, but I've also put a bit of effort in to show that I'm interested in you, not just in our job for a job's sake.
Hmm. That's really interesting. But also, you mentioned stress and mental well-being when talking about your previous careers. I think a lot of students do struggle with like stress and keep themselves up to date and mentally healthy. Do you have any recommendations now that you've, been through university and you've been through the professional field, and I'm sure you've had a lot of struggles in your life that I can imagine. But how do you deal with that, and how do you come out with a stronger and a better person?
What a deep question, Ivan. Let's see what I think about that. Number one, I would say do life with other people. Now, that often might mean, who you end up sharing a flat with, who you end up working alongside in your part-time job, or who's in your societies. Who are the friends that you can journey with? You're not picking people because they're experts in the field. You just like them. You hang out with them. When things are hard, they can hold you up. And when it's hard for them, you're there to hold them up. It's one of the things about being married, actually. It's the hardest thing in the world to do, but it's the best thing in the world to do. Finding that life partner who you actually can spend the rest of your life with, a friend who gets you. Now, you don't choose to marry somebody for that reason, but it shows you the emphasis of relationship. It's so important. So your social networks matter massively when it comes to mental health. I've come to learn a bit later than I probably should have done. Physical health really matters as well. I cycled quite a lot as a student. I went out walking. Maintaining physical health, thinking about your diet has an impact on your quality of living, on your mental health as well. So don't ignore it. You have to kind of keep these things in balance. Um, and then finally, and this is a hard one to say, I suppose, and it's almost at every stage of life, where you are just now is not the most important part of your life. Things will happen to you next. I ended my university degree with a bit of a fail, and it was a co-fail between me and the university in that I didn't attend one of the compulsory courses in my very final semester. And I had forgotten that I was supposed to go to it. It wasn't very well organized. And they hadn't been taking a register, which they should have done. So I think 10 weeks into a 13-week course, they said to me, you haven't handed this homework in. And I said, well, I'm not on that course. And they said, but it's compulsory. You can't get your degree without this course. Oh, that's not great, is it? So I had to ring my parents and say, look, I'm really sorry, but I've messed up a bit here. University's admitted a bit of fault. They'll let me graduate, but with not quite the same degree as I was going to have before. And it wasn't the end of the world. I was never a high-flying academic. I enjoyed university. I got out. And then it's not that life begins, but life pivots, life changes. It's not about academia. It's not just about getting a job. It's not about getting a husband or a wife or a house. It is about finding a way to support the life that you want to support. I was leaving university around the time that lifelong careers were kind of just phasing out. Job for life and 30, 40 years in the same company. And I've had a portfolio career, mostly in the same profession, financial planning, but with now 4 different companies. And that's quite normal. But you're trying to enjoy life without being reckless because you have got decades ahead of you where you can make changes. Do something you enjoy. See if it can pay enough to pay the bills. Change, do something else. Where you are right now is not the end. You will get through it with other people. And certainly, if you need help, need advice, go and find some. It's not something to be ashamed of that you need help. Everybody needs help at some point. Sometimes you're the one who's helping them. So be generous with your time and your expertise, and others will be generous with theirs to you. And that way you journey with a group of people, and that group will change over time. but it's doing life rather than having two layers of focus on, I must get a job with a salary and a house and a car and a holiday and a wife and kids. Let life kind of happen around you and embrace the challenge, but take hold of the challenge when you can as well.